The dollar in your wallet isn't money, it's a promise, and promises, as 500 years of history proves, always break. Every empire tells itself the same lie, that their currency will last forever, that their system is different, that their power makes them untouchable. The Spanish believed it when silver from the New World flooded their coffers. The British thought it when the pound ruled global trade. The Romans were certain when their coins carried the weight of the known world. Yet each of these empires watched their money turn to dust, and with it, their dominance crumbled. Today, the United States sits atop the global financial order, its dollar the backbone of international trade, the reserve currency that every nation holds, the standard by which all value is measured. But history doesn't care about exceptionalism. It follows patterns. And the pattern that destroyed 5 empires over 5 centuries is now circling the American dollar like a predator sensing weakness. This isn't speculation. This is repetition. The same forces that toppled monetary systems from ancient Rome to modern Britain are gathering strength. The same mistakes that turned imperial currencies into historical footnotes are being made again. The same arrogance that blinded previous powers to their own fragility is clouding American judgment right now. What you're about to discover will shatter everything you think you know about money, power, and the future of the global economy. Because the pattern isn't just academic history, it's a blueprint for collapse that's playing out in real time. And if you understand it, you can protect yourself. If you ignore it, you'll be swept away with everyone else who believed the promises would never break. Let me show you how empires fall, why it always starts with their money, and why the United States is walking the exact same path that destroyed every empire before it. The pattern begins with success. Every dominant empire reaches a point where their currency becomes more than money. It becomes trust incarnate. Other nations accept it, not because of what backs it, but because of the power behind it. Trade flows through it. Debts are denominated in it. Wealth is stored in it. The currency becomes the circulatory system of the global economy. This is where the trap sets itself. Success breeds complacency. The empire begins to believe its own mythology. They convince themselves that their currency is special, that normal economic laws don't apply to them, that their position is permanent. They start to abuse the privilege that comes with controlling the world's money. The abuse takes predictable forms. They print more currency to fund their ambitions. They spend beyond their means, confident that others will always accept their money. They use their monetary dominance as a weapon, forcing compliance through financial pressure. They grow fat and lazy, consuming more than they produce, borrowing against a future they assume will always favor them. But empires are not immortal, and neither are their currencies. The Spanish Empire learned this the hard way. When conquistadors shipped mountains of silver back from the Americas, Spain thought it had solved the problem of wealth forever. More silver meant more power. More power meant more dominance. But flooding the world with silver didn't create wealth. It destroyed it. Prices exploded across Europe. The Spanish economy collapsed under the weight of its own treasure. What should have been a blessing became a curse that hollowed out the empire from within. The British Empire made different mistakes but suffered the same fate. For 2 centuries, the British pound was the undisputed king of international finance. British banks financed global trade. British currency flowed through every major market. London was the financial capital of the world. But 2 world wars shattered that dominance. Britain borrowed heavily to fund its survival, mortgaging its future to American lenders. When the bills came due, the empire that once ruled the seas couldn't pay them. The pound sterling became just another national currency, and Britain faded from global leadership. The French discovered that revolutionary ideals couldn't print their way to prosperity. The assignats, backed by the promise of confiscated church lands, were supposed to stabilize the new republic. Instead, they unleashed hyperinflation that destroyed the savings of ordinary citizens and threw the nation into chaos. Revolution devoured revolution until Napoleon seized power, and even his military genius couldn't restore faith in French currency. The German Weimar Republic thought it could paper over its problems after World War I. Faced with crushing reparations and economic collapse, they turned to the printing press. The result was hyperinflation so severe that people carried wheelbarrows of cash to buy bread. Life savings evaporated overnight. The middle class was annihilated, social order collapsed, creating the conditions for extremism to flourish. The most advanced economy in Europe destroyed itself with its own money. Even the mighty Roman Empire, which endured for over a millennium, couldn't escape the pattern. For centuries, the silver denarius was the backbone of Mediterranean commerce. Roman coins were trusted from Britain to Mesopotamia. But as the empire stretched itself thin defending endless frontiers, emperors began debasing the currency. They reduced the silver content, hoping no one would notice. Citizens noticed, merchants noticed. Trust evaporated, prices soared, and the economic foundation of Roman power crumbled. The barbarians at the gates merely finished what currency debasement had started. Each empire told itself the same story. Their situation was different, their power was unshakable, their currency was backed by something more than mere economics. They were wrong, every single time. Now the pattern has found a new target. The United States dollar has held global dominance for nearly 8 decades. Since the end of World War II, it has been the world's reserve currency, the standard for international trade, the safe haven in times of crisis. American power projected American money into every corner of the global economy. But power creates privilege, and privilege, as history shows, always corrupts. The signs are everywhere for those willing to see them. The United States prints dollars not to create wealth, but to fund consumption it cannot afford. Federal debt has exploded beyond any pretense of sustainability. Trade deficits have become permanent features of the economy. The manufacturing base that once backed American currency with real production has been hollowed out and shipped overseas. Meanwhile, challenges are emerging. Nations that once depended on dollar-denominated trade are building alternative systems. Central banks that once hoarded dollars are diversifying into other currencies, gold, and digital alternatives. The financial weapons America has wielded to enforce its will are teaching the world to build defenses against dollar dominance. The pattern is accelerating. The pattern is accelerating. The acceleration isn't subtle anymore. It's happening in boardrooms, central banks, and government chambers around the world. Every month brings new evidence that the dollar's monopoly is fracturing China, and Russia conduct massive trade deals in their own currencies, bypassing the dollar entirely. Saudi Arabia, America's closest Middle Eastern ally, openly discusses pricing oil in yuan instead of dollars. The BRICS nations are constructing payment systems designed to circumvent American financial infrastructure. Even European allies are building mechanisms to trade without dollar involvement when American sanctions make it inconvenient. This is how empires lose their monetary dominance. Not through dramatic collapse, but through steady erosion as the world quietly builds alternatives. Rome didn't wake up one morning to find its coins worthless. Spain didn't suddenly discover its silver was rejected. Britain didn't face an overnight rebellion against the pound. The process unfolds gradually, then suddenly, as trust shifts and alternatives emerge. America's response follows the same desperate playbook every failing empire has used. Double down on what worked before. Print more money to maintain the illusion of strength. Use financial pressure to force compliance. Threaten consequences for nations that dare to seek alternatives. But threats only work when you have the power to enforce them, and power built on debt and printing presses is more fragile than it appears. The Federal Reserve has printed more dollars in the past 15 years than in the previous 2 centuries combined. Emergency measures became permanent policy, quantitative easing, once unthinkable, became routine. Interest rates were suppressed to levels that would have shocked previous generations of economists. The money supply exploded while real economic growth stagnated. This is the endgame of every monetary empire. When you can no longer create real wealth, you create the illusion of wealth through currency manipulation. When your economy can no longer compete, you force the world to use your money anyway. When your dominance starts slipping, you abuse your remaining privileges harder and faster, accelerating the very process that will destroy you. The mathematics are unforgiving. Every dollar created dilutes every dollar that came before it. Every debt issued must eventually be paid or defaulted. Every promise made by a government spending beyond its means carries the risk of being broken. The laws of economics don't care about military might or historical precedent. They care about supply and demand, production and consumption, value and trust. And trust, once lost, never fully returns. Foreign central banks understand this better than most Americans. They've watched the dollar's purchasing power erode for decades. They've seen American fiscal discipline disappear. They've witnessed the weaponization of the financial system against nations that displease Washington. Smart money doesn't wait for collapse to become obvious. It positions itself before the crowd recognizes what's happening. Gold reserves held by central banks are growing at the fastest pace in decades. Nations are repatriating their gold from American vaults. Cryptocurrency adoption is accelerating in countries seeking alternatives to dollar dependence. Bilateral trade agreements that exclude the dollar are multiplying. The infrastructure for a post-dollar world is being built right now, quietly and systematically. But the most dangerous part of this pattern isn't the economic mechanics, it's the psychology. Every empire that faced monetary collapse convinced itself it was different until the very end. Spanish kings believed their silver mines made them invincible. British leaders assumed their naval dominance guaranteed monetary supremacy. French revolutionaries thought ideology could overcome economics. German officials believed they could print their way to prosperity. American leaders today echo the same delusions. They speak of dollar dominance as a law of nature rather than a historical accident. They treat fiscal irresponsibility as modern, monetary theory. They mistake military power for economic invincibility. They assume the world will always accept American currency simply because it always has. History offers no examples of monetary empires that recognize their vulnerabilities in time and corrected course. The pattern suggests they can't. The privileges of monetary dominance are too intoxicating. The short-term benefits of currency manipulation are too tempting. The political costs of fiscal discipline are too high, so they continue down the same path, making the same mistakes until the same inevitable end. The question isn't whether the pattern will continue. The question is how quickly it will unfold, and what will replace the dollar when its dominance finally breaks, because something always replaces the fallen empire's currency. Something always fills the monetary vacuum, and whoever controls that replacement will inherit the power the United States is busy throwing away. The signs are multiplying. The alternatives are emerging. The pattern is playing out exactly as it has for 5 centuries, and most Americans have no idea what's coming. 5 empires, 5 currencies, 5 collapses. The pattern doesn't lie, and it doesn't make exceptions. Rome's silver denarius, Spain's pieces of 8 Francs assignats, Britain's pound sterling, Germany's Reichsmark. Each one dominated global trade in its time. Each one seemed permanent to those who used it. Each one crumbled when the empire behind it grew too arrogant, too reckless, too convinced of its own invincibility. Today, the American dollar follows the exact same trajectory. The printing presses run day and night. The debt mountains grow higher. The world quietly builds alternatives, while American leaders pretend nothing has changed. The pattern that destroyed 5 monetary empires over 5 centuries has found its next victim. This isn't prophecy. This is precedent. History doesn't repeat, but if you ignore its lessons, it will crush you all the same. The smart money isn't waiting for the collapse to become obvious. It's positioning itself now, before the crowd realizes what's happening. The dollar in your wallet is still a promise, but promises backed by nothing but debt and delusion don't last forever. Ask the Spanish, ask the British, ask anyone who thought their empire's money was different. The pattern never breaks, only the currencies do. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and the next chapter is being written right now.